Today, I want to improve this world in as many ways as I can, whether that's building farms, tidying up messy corners, or building completely new structures that just make the world feel more alive. And I feel like a great way to start is fixing a few things that I really don't like. I think the first thing on that list is this really ugly hill. It just sort of juts out in the middle of nowhere, and I honestly can't stand it. So I think what I might do is quickly go gather a load of resources and see you back in a minute once I'm done. So as you can see, I did gather a load of resources just there. I'm thinking for this block palette, I might do something where I start all the way down kind of tough and pale moss, and I transition through some mossy cobblestone into some stone, light grey wool, and andesite. So this is the kind of gradient I want. I might swap these two round, I'm not yet decided. I want to make some patches near the bottom of these three blocks, which then feeds into these three that make up the majority of the cliff. So these make a really nice deep shadow. But now it's probably time we skip ahead and I'll show you what we have once I've got a meaningful update on this area. I've made a start in this area, and it's by no means getting anywhere near done. This cliff needs to reach all the way over to this end, as well as all the way around here, and up to about, I think here should be a good spot. Once that's done, I'm also thinking I'm going to integrate it into the ground. I have been looking at the possibility of adding a waterfall that runs down to a pond down here. I'm going to use a load of leaves and stuff to really tie it in and make it look like part of the terrain. Also, I've got a little special thing planned to just put up here, which I think will be really cool. But I'm not going to spoil that yet. It's already helping tie this area together much more interestingly. But there's a long way to go till this is done. So I think what's next is I'm just going to keep working on building out on either side. Once that's all done, I'll catch you all with an update. Alright, so as you can see, this cliff is now all in place. And I'm quite liking how it's come together. A lot of interesting texture, I think, going on here. Like having these highlights with the grey wool. And then down in these sort of shadowier areas, we've got sort of where it might get a bit damper. So I'm thinking this ground is probably going to be reasonably damp. And part of that's because we're adding a little pond down here that will come from a little waterfall out here. So I think the best way to start this will just be to add in many water sources as possible and just fill this whole pond up nicely like that. I've got to make sure all these stairs are waterlogged, and I think that should be all of them. And finally climb up this cliff with a bucket of water and placing it in here. And if that all runs down correctly, which it does, we've got a wonderful little waterfall down here. Now the next step is going to be very simple, and that's just adding in a load of foliage around the base, which I put in, and I think it's looking great. As you can see over here, I put quite a dense bit of foliage around the edge of this pond. I feel like that would make a lot of sense, where the water's kind of made this land a bit more fertile. I've also used a little hedge here, as I was thinking of making this almost feel like a miniature park, with a kind of small recreational space under the cliff, which I think could be quite a cool little addition. Now as you can see over here, I have also started to sort of feather off the edge of the cliff by transitioning from the grass to the stone using some leaves. And this wraps up right to the top, where there's going to be another layer of foliage. It'll also include a small stream that runs from up here all the way down to connect to where the waterfall is over here. So over here I'm thinking of something like this, and then if I bring these leaves across, it should look quite good. And I feel like this could work along here, just to kind of tie in along this edge. So I think I'm going to just continue along with all of this. So as you can see, I have added a really lovely little pond over here, as connecting and extending the river through adds even more water to this area. And I have recently realised that I just love adding water to my builds, as you can see over here. It just makes everything look a bit better in my opinion, as it adds movement and life and a bright blue contrast to all the other colours. But with all this new foliage added on the top, it makes a really different sort of effect. As you walk up here, you see these little bits peeking over. And when the thing I've got planned for here, which is going in hopefully quite soon, that when that's in place, it's going to really sell the effect, I think. This also has helped massively in connecting this area over here to the forest, as I want to bridge this area and connect it all up. But the next thing that I'm going to add, I think, will be a small custom tree. Will fit right about where I'm stood here. And here you go, this is this new custom tree. Now I wanted to replicate the style of these trees over here, but shrink it down, as I wanted to make it so it provides a little bit of a false perspective thing, so it makes this cliff seem even larger. As what the aim here is that the building that sits on top should appear to be a bit taller, and at the very least this is doing a good job at smoothing out the edges from the forest out into this sort of plains area over here. So I know I've been teasing it for a little while now. What could this possibly be that goes up here? I've been thinking about it for a long while in this world. I think I mentioned it in an older video as well. I wanted to add some kind of watchtower for the castle. As this castle is not always in the best state, as you can see from the tower right at the back over here, I thought it might make sense for the watchtower to be left in a state of disrepair, and use it as a way that I can access a future moss farm I also want to build. So I think I'm just going to build that now, and I'll see you once it's done. So with this ruined watchtower now constructed, the only thing left to do, I think, is to decorate inside the water here. So I've got a bit of kelp, which by leaving one block tall kelp, you get this really interesting looking little moving bits. And then I'm also just going to whack a piece of bone meal down over here. That's all decorated, and I'm going to do the same for the lower pond. I've almost run out of moss completely, like this is pretty much my entire supply, and I need that moss farm pretty soon, because gathering moss by hand is just not particularly fun. So what I'm going to do is find a chunk which is below here, and dig out a large area where the moss farm can live. So with the hole now dug, I think it's time that we move on to part 2 of this video, which is building the moss farm. Before we do that, we're going to need to gather a load of resources. Mostly it will be iron, but we also are going to need a load of bone meal to power the farm. And now the bone meal farm I built a few episodes ago has been working, but it might be the most inefficient farm in the entirety of Minecraft, as there is only 18 pieces of bone meal in there. So that's not going to be good enough. So from looking at a seed map, I've got very lucky because it appears that there's a skeleton spawner right below this hole, somewhere about here. So I think what I might do is dig a little path all the way down to it, and that's going to be a good starter source of bone meal for this farm. I should be getting pretty close now. I think in fact that might be the skeleton spawner I hear there. If we just drop down some torches, let's see if we can figure out where the spawner is then. Ah, there we go. Okay, so it's a little bit further down still. So if I get directly above the spawner itself. If we just light this area up a bit, this should be a perfectly good spot. So I suppose it'd be a good time now just to hop into a quick time lapse and turn this entire spawner into a skeleton farm. Okay, so this spawner's now done. If I want XP I can always turn this off, but for now I'm going to just have it to automatically get me the bones I need. So now we've got a source of bone meal. What we need next is a load of iron, which I'm going to go and gather right now. If you look here, I've just come across an iron vein, which is really cool, so let's see how much iron we can get here. You know what, that iron vein was a little bit disappointing actually. Didn't seem to get much iron in it at all. Unless it extends somewhere else and I missed it. I don't think that was particularly good. So at the end of that little mining trip, we ended up getting a decent chunk of iron, plus 1 block of raw iron, so this isn't too bad. If we just place it all down now, I'm going to see how much we get. If we go and quickly smelt that, that should be plenty of iron to at least get a start on this moss farm. I was just out looking for a swamp because I need some slime balls for the moss farm, and I've just found possibly the craziest bit of terrain. Look at this mountain. Don't know how it's generated like that. Okay, and there's more. I hadn't even noticed that. This seed is weird. If anyone wants to check it out, those are the coordinates, and I think the seed should be in the description of my first episode. But yeah, that's pretty absurd terrain generation. And with some slime balls acquired, I'm heading home to start work on the moss farm. So I think we should just get started, and I'm going to build this moss farm. I will not be time-lapsing or anything, because I'm going to build with a schematic that I've actually got loaded up here. Because I'm really terrible at redstone and stuff, so I've taken a design from YouTube and I've modified it a bit. And this is the schematic I've got. So I'll see you once that's been built. So the farm's now in place, and if you come up here, can see I've added an enderpearl stasis chamber that should keep this chunk loaded, and that chunk loader should make the farm much less likely to break. So now if I just remove these scaffolding blocks and drop down into the skeleton farm, then take these bones, quickly craft them up and throw them in this barrel, run back here and turn it on. Okay, I've made a mistake here. This wasn't meant to happen. Okay, so we've got the composter down there. That's for overflow. I suppose the best bet would just be to remove the composter then. So that is totally fine. We can just add an extra chest instead. I suppose we've got a bone meal farm anyway, so we don't really need the composter. Okay, that's all fine. Now if we start it up, it should be working. There we go. Perfect. I'll just drop off those. I'm going to leave this running for a little bit just to gather as much moss as I can. And once I've got a load of moss, I'll see you back where I think I'm going to decorate the interior of this sort of cave area. I want to make it feel like a basement for the watchtower. If I craft up a load of stone bricks, and then if I grab a load of moss blocks as well, craft a load of mossy stone bricks, I think I might do something along these lines. Then if up here, say I mix in a bit of some normal stone along with the stone bricks, something like, actually you know what, if we do something like this and then that and that works quite nicely. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is lower this section here, and I'm just going to keep building walls up like that, and I'll catch you once that's done. I've finished this area now. It's not the most sort of interesting area. I just sort of throw a load of decorations together to make it seem like some kind of old abandoned basement. Then through here I haven't bothered to decorate our refilling the bone mill area. And I also haven't decorated down here, but I don't think that matters that much. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to get done there. I think now we've got all the moss farm set up, it might be time to move on to the next project. So the next project is run the other side of the base in an area I haven't touched for a while, and I want to be building an iron farm. The reason I've chosen this little corner to build the iron farm is not only because it's quite flat, but it's also tied in closely with where the quarry is, because I think that would make sense. I want the whole thing to feel connected up. I'm going to bring a path from where the farm is all the way up to the back of this crane, which was meant to be connected to a path in the second episode, but I just never got round to it. And then that's going to also run round and connect to the path that comes down by the tree over here. I'm also only planning on building a very small iron farm. The rates shouldn't be too good, but since the chunks are pretty much constantly loaded, I've got a big project planned for over this side. It should be quite efficient still, sort of churning away in the background. So here you go, I have finally finished this area. Well, it's not finished, it's got a long way to go still over the course of this world. But I think it's at a state now where I can leave this. So at last we've got the crane at the back of my quarry, connected via a path all the way back to the rest of the town. And despite this area currently feeling a little bit isolated, I really love the vibe we've been able to create. This little patch of road in particular with the stack of wood, just seeing all the flowers as you walk past, I think is a really nice little corner. So I did include another farm, because I think farmland's a great way to fill out your world. And over here's a little jug next to what is a little well with a lid. I really love that as a small detail in the farmland. Another detail I love is where this cart is, carrying a load of raw copper, and as you can see some of the copper has fallen onto the stone. I feel little details like this really help just bring out your world's overall atmosphere and make it all feel a bit more alive. But as you can see, this is kind of some kind of store yard for a load of the mined resources, hence why so many of them have sort of tumbled onto the ground and stuff. And in the time building it, we've made a decent amount of iron, so this is something I'm very happy with. And this iron farm should be in operation when I'm over at my starter base, so I should be able to get a pretty consistent source of iron throughout this world. But speaking of my starter base, there's something here that I really do not like, and it's this building. I built it in, I think, the 3rd episode, and at first I didn't mind it, but over time it just really sticks out in the rest of the build. I think the tower is a little bit too tall, so the next project will be upgrading my enchanting tower. So I've gathered the resources I need to build this tower, as you can see. However, while I was gathering it, there was a thunderstorm, and I managed to clear out one of the skeleton horse traps. So I've now got 4 skeleton horses up here, and I really don't know what to do with them, so if anyone has suggestions, let me know. But I think they could do something quite fun with them. But with that said, I'd like to get working on this tower, because I want it to be done reasonably soon. I think with a few minor improvements here, it's really made a difference. And I think, if anything, I've made this feel a lot more magical, finding this giant crumbling chimney, which gives a real kind of magical feeling to this whole build. However, there's still a lot more to be doing in this area, as, please don't break my carrot, as I want to make this part all terraformed, and I'm thinking we'll have some fields over here, then the road reaching up and connecting up to that bit. And I was thinking over here maybe making some kind of marshland where the bridge feels a little bit kind of marshy. So I took an hour or so just to make sure I had all the details I needed in the terrain, and this is what it now looks like, which I think is a massive improvement on what we had previously. This whole area is completed, and I think the terrain is looking really, really lovely. There's a few details that I want to talk you through. Start off with this little bulrush design over here. I think they're cattails in America. I really love it. It's so simple. It's just some glass panes, some bamboo, a few brown candles, but it makes a really great design, and it fills in great with the whole swamp aesthetic. Continuing on with the swamp, I think having some signs in the water has really made it look like broken branches and stuff. And the other detail in this area that I really wanted to talk about is how you get leaf litter floating on water. Now, this shouldn't be able to be done in the game, as that's not how it works. However, by placing a blue glass beneath it and surrounding it with leaves, you can then put the leaf litter on and it looks like it's just floating on the water, making it look more like there's even more debris in the water. Along with all that, I've added a little shrine over here. Now this is something that I'm really happy with, as it just looks like as you come along the road, there's a little place where people might meet, or that there maybe was once some sort of structure that's slowly fallen away, but people still kind of respect some kind of deity over here. I've also added a few fields, and a little pier over here where the farmer might load some of their crops onto a boat to take to other places. But I feel like this has really helped fill out this area wonderfully and made it feel much more complete. If you look from a distance now, this whole section from around here where the villager trading hall was, all the way across to the farming village, feels completed on the waterway, and that's something that I've been aiming to do for a while, and I think is tying this area together very nicely. But I think that's all I have time for today. If you made it to the end of this video, I'm assuming you enjoyed it, so there will be a full playlist of the rest of my survival series on the end screen now, and if you enjoy my content, consider subscribing so you don't miss future uploads, because you won't want to miss what I've got planned for the future.